You feel like you're out in the bush in the middle of nowhere. It's dry, dusty, corrupt. There's just huge grasslands around. When you look, you just see a few, mud brick huts. You would never, ever guess that this is a town of 60,000 people. But if you keep going through the dirt streets, you just keep finding more and more mud huts. You get the sense that you are in a tiny, tiny village. The country is extremely poor because of civil war since 1960 when they got their independence from France. But the people are very dignified, proud people. Very suspicious people too. Because of its vastness and huge areas of desert, there's not really large centers of population. People are just scattered everywhere because there's not that many people who live here because of the war, and poverty has taken its toll. Infant mortality, women dying in childbirth, diseases. So it's a very difficult place to work in as far as medically wise. In 2003, I committed to come here, and I arrived here on January 1 of this year. Most of the Adventist world doesn't even know that the hospital exists. It hasn't been mentioned in many of the publications. If it is mentioned, it's called the Adventist Health Center, which brings up connotations of a two-room clinic with maybe a microscope, whereas our hospital is a full-functioning hospital with surgeries and deliveries, and it's the hospital for the whole district of Berry, which is about 160,000 people. The book by Joan Coggin was, she first sent out to all the active Adventist institutions to try and get stories about their existence, but then at the end of the book, she included a listing of all currently open Adventist health institutions and all those that had been open in the past and were now closed. And that list was very comprehensive. It included everything except for the Berry Adventist Hospital. So we are, I think, not known at all in the Adventist world. They don't even realize that there's no communication here. I've had many people want to send me faxes, thinking that it's easy for us to get mail. I get letters, a month after they say, please return to us by this date, I got an email forward from someone saying, please let us know when Dr. Appel is going to arrive, and that was a month after I'd arrived. Even the local Association of Adventist churches here in Chad, most of the people haven't ever been out to visit the hospital. We get no financial support from them. We get any kind of support from them, really. And yet they want our institution to be a part of it. So I don't think there's really many views about it because I don't think anyone really knows it's here. There was a mechanic and his nurse wife who came here, I think in 1976. He was kind of doing the tent maker type thing where he was going to be doing mechanic work and she was, and they would be missionaries kind of on the side. She then started, using her nursing skills, handing out medicines, doing consultations. Then the Adventist Church decided, well, why not make this into a hospital? So they sent a missionary doctor out. And there's been a wide variety of them that have come down through the years. And then they just would grab the local people, some of the Adventist members who would start out. For example, our radiology tech and pediatric nurse started out as the janitor, and then slowly he would start, doing dressing changes. Then he'd start, giving injections, and next thing you know, he's prescribing. Our surgery tech started out similar thing. He was hired just to do some maintenance around, and the next thing you know, now he does C-sections and hernia repairs and runs our operating theater. So these guys don't have a lot of formal education, but they have a lot of experience. The last expatriate missionary, Dr. Kip, left in, I believe, 1993 or 90, the early 90s somewhere. And since then, there hasn't been really a regular doctor here. For the most part, it was the nurses, these guys with all their experience who kept the hospital running.
People always blame their outer circumstances for how they are or what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people that do well in this world are those who stand up and seek the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, they create them. It's a book my mom sent me for just a lot of quotes.
Well, I could say it was a coincidence, but I believe that it was God who led me here, actually. Because I was looking for a place to go, for a place I could stay and do mission work like this, more long-term than just small projects. And God happened to put me in contact with the right people at the right time, and after praying and watching how God made circumstances fall out to my good, then I ended up here. I've been born in a lucky country. I've been fortunate to live in a safe country with healthcare and education systems that work really well. So I think I owe back something to those who don't have that. I'd like to do as much as I can, but I'm not going to feel like a failure if I don't rescue a whole lot of people. It's not like that. If I just make a little difference to a few people, that would have been worth it, because if I had been in that situation, I would have liked somebody to come down and help me, even if it was just me. Since it's God who put me here, then I guess that He'll let me do whatever He wants me to do. This guy was bit half over by a hippo when he was fishing, and it actually bit all the way through here, so he didn't have any anus anymore. It was James who was there. He was just bit all the way. It was open. You could just take out his whole leg and butt like this. It was just flop, flop. They spent 7 hours just trying to stitch him up in the first place. He replaced made a colostomy temporarily. But he didn't lose as much blood as you might expect. Just so infected. So what we do is wash it every day, flush it with a Clorox, a mild blend of water and Clorox, which has already helped a lot to disinfect it. And then hope that the suture holds. It's not been holding very well just until now. Now it's going okay. Because inside it's undermined. Maybe the outside is closed, but inside there's just hardly any flesh to make come together and keep it. So every day we do this. And it's hard for him because it hurts, but he doesn't complain. People are really tough here. That's it. We do our best with what we have. So now his mom and wife and kid has been here with him for almost 2 months, and they have a really hard time finding any money because he's a provider and he used to catch fish and sell, but he hasn't been able to do so now for 2 months.
When I first came to Barrie, I knew this place was pretty much as remote as it gets. I spoke with Dr. Hart at Loma, and I said, I'm trying to plan one of my senior electives this year. I said, where would you recommend I go? I said, somewhere remote, maybe where you haven't sent any students before. And he said, I think I'll send you to Barrie and Chad. I've traveled a lot, over the past 10 years or so, a lot of third world countries and stuff, but I never even thought of visiting Chad before. So as soon as he mentioned that, it kind of jumped at me, and I said, yeah, I'll go there. See, Dr. James is happy to have a medical student there, and now that's the attending. I get to carry his bag around, see? He just kind of reached in there, take his things. He knows what's up. I'd been to a hospital in Zambia once before, and I kind of expected something like that. But I must say, this is a little more run down than that hospital was. What I found here was just some dilapidated old buildings, and a bunch of poor people, a bunch of animals walking around. When it comes to malaria, they can't even distinguish between the 4 types of basic malaria, and then they have to treat everyone as if it's Plasmodium falciparum, which is the most lethal of malarias, just because they don't have the basic microscopic equipment just to look at the red blood cells to see what there is. Of course, they're limited on drugs. I went through the pharmacy today with James and Sarah, and just there's nothing there at all. Just maybe some basic antibiotics. And I remember just the other day we were up in the capital city in Jimena, and we had to buy black market lidocaine just because there's only 1 vial left in the hospital. And I mean, lidocaine, it's water, in the States. And of course they have no EKG here. They have no X-ray machines, no ultrasound. They can't even get a chemistry, can't even check a glucose here. The most basic of all labs. So this place really relies a lot on your clinical suspicion and clinical judgment, which I admire James for. He does a great job with what he's got. I have been to a few countries, I have been to a few third world hospitals, but this guy is above and beyond any threshold that I had in my imagination of what a missionary could do. This guy's got nothing here. He's in the middle of nowhere, and he's made a serious commitment to be here for at least 6 years, and that kind of blows me away. He's a good leader. He takes charge. He gets frustrated. He deals with it. I really admire him, and I admire what he's doing. I try to put myself in James's shoes and think, man, how would I even start? And it's just overwhelming to think what it would take to get this thing going, but I know that he'll be able to do that. Sarah has some amazing qualities as well. I mean, she got here a few months before James, I believe. She's a very, very compassionate, very humble person. She's opened up our home to us. I don't even know where she's sleeping. I think she's sleeping with some of the other nurses. She's very dedicated to people here. One thing that really impresses me about Sarah is that she does not complain at all. She smiles about everything. She's good-natured. She's compassionate. She loves the children. She's a very quality person. And again, she's also put in a huge commitment to this place. You know, she plans on staying for at least 2 years. She's been here for 6 months. She's another person who sees the need and goes where the need is the greatest and puts her desires into action. Okay. She's too serious. So almost all these kids have malaria then? Do they have anything else when they come in? Just like...
Yeah, you know, the dangerous thing is to say, okay, it's just malaria, and then just treat them for malaria, because what if it's meningitis?
Right.
It could be so many things.
You can't really tell, can you? Because you don't have any lab equipment.
Well, you could check for the typhoid.
Right.
Or meningitis if you do
for
a
white count.
puncture.
Oh, they do lumbar punctures here? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
You know, if it's clear. Well, what do you think?
Oh, really?
This is a kid who is extremely malnourished. You can see the hair is trying to change color, the limbs is fat belly, legs. Classic signs of malnutrition.
Just TB? TB?
Yeah, everyone here is on out is going to be TB. I do this not really because I'm actually listening for anything, but they really appreciate being examined, and it makes them feel careful. And since our biggest thing here is to try and get them to finish their treatment, this allows me the opportunity to educate and things like that. Right now we got no one who can translate, so it's a problem.
Really decrease sounds on her, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Probably so she came in really late, so she's probably in an advanced stage where she's got a lot of scarring there, or we could tap, or she might have a pleural effusion. So it's not really dull, so it's probably just scarring.
Oh, from what I saw, we just were on rounds, and then we heard the baby screaming, and then we saw the mom pick up the baby, and it kind of looked like the baby was having a bowel movement. But it didn't look like a bowel movement, and it got really long, so I was wondering, wow, if it's bowel movement, it would have fallen out by now. But it was all like red and, you know, like tissue. So Dr. James just heard about it, and I would suspect it's a rectal prolapse, and we're going to go check out the baby right now. I guess maybe the mom was embarrassed, and she went running out of the room right away. Mind you, I've never seen a rectal prolapse before, so I don't know. Bonjour.
C'est l'enfant ici.
Bonjour, madame. Hi. Bonjour.
Attends. Le pain.
I've never seen this before.
Yeah. Oh, but it looks like.
Non, c'est pas nécessaire de nettoyer. Non. Ça a passé avant? Ça, c'est la première fois.
Bon, avant même, ça sort aussi.
Até James, compresse.
Okay.
Yeah, John.
Okay.
Mais le problème, c'est que faire maintenant? Pour prévenir la prochaine fois, je sais pas.
Bon, c'était la dernière fois, c'était le...
Have you seen this before?
Pas la dernière fois, la première fois.
In Congo?
Yes.
Yes.
Hein?
C'était la saison pluvieuse, bon, comme ça.
And you don't need surgery?
Pour ça.
Non.
Not now, but later. Surgery?
Ok, mais avant ça, est-ce que
Yeah.
l'enfant
No?
n'a pas le...
No, now.
Now it's okay.
Okay, but
Le sel de
next time.
constipation.
Quand vous avançable, c'est...
Yeah, the bowel.
will be see and to say exactly what it will be.
Bon, le sel, c'est dur, mais il n'a pas de
Digestive.
constipation, mais le sel-
Yeah, digestive. Intestines. Yeah.
He's got really hard stools, so he strains. And now the rectum's gotten huge,
Right.
and so it's just loose and floppy in there. So when it's huge like that, he won't feel it till it's the stool. Because what gives you the urge to go is when the stool starts to stretch
Right.
the colon.
Right.
So if the colon is already stretched out, the stool's going to fill it there, and then by the time it gets to stretch out, it's so big that it's hard to go, and then you're going to have to strain to get out.
So is this going to happen also?
Quand il veut uriner. Donc c'est quand il pousse pour uriner, là, c'est là où l'anus va sortir.
That was nice.
No kidding.
Dude, I'm still trying to figure out how that even happens. You must just have a really long, floppy
Rectum.
sigmoid, and it's just gotten huge from being constipated, so that the sigmoid is smaller than the rectum,
Right.
right?
Right.
So the rectum has to be bigger, so the sigmoid is smaller, and it's like an interception, kind of. Yeah.
Jeez.
Ça doit être à cause de la constipation que le rectum est plus grand que le sigmoid. Coming to Bere, one of the things that attracted me is they've been looking for so long to find someone to come, and no one can come. And I want to go to a place where no one wants to go. Maybe it's in my blood to feel like I'm filling a need that is really, really there, that maybe no one else could or would fill. I can't say I love the food, I can't say I love the climate, or I think I come here because it's beautiful, but there's just something earthy, simple, raw, mysterious, and alive about being here. You just run through the contrasts every day. You're just up, you're down, you're saving lives, you're losing lives, you're mad, you're happy, you're crying, you're laughing. You run the gamut of emotions, but one thing you never are is bored or just blasé. It's never that. I may have some frustrations here, but it's nothing compared to the frustrations of medicine in the States. And I always felt like God has given me adaptability. I adapt very easily to new situations. I do well under pressure, and the medicine that I enjoy is where you're under the gun and you do what you can. It's just more basic, I guess. You're faced with life and death every day. When people come, they're sick, and they could die. People in the States are afraid, and that hits at many levels, but I think that hits the physician as well. You're respected in all areas of society, and you make good money. Why would you want to leave that behind? And I think it's a lack of exposure to what's over here. Again, misconceptions about what it's like here. People think, what a waste for me to be trained in such a the highest level of medical care, standard of care in the world, for me to be trained in that and then to come to a place like Bere and not be able to use that. What a waste. So they excuse it that way, saying, I can be a missionary here in the States. Well, how is the rest of the world ever going to raise its standard of care if we in the States don't come out and inspire them to higher and better things? So there's many excuses that people use, but it's fear. I think they feel like they'll be frustrated in an environment like this, or maybe they'll be faced with things they won't be able to handle. They're afraid of the unknown, maybe. In the States, you can always refer to someone else, and yet you may be the most qualified person to do it. Oh, the baby. We started treatment for malaria. We just kept having diarrhea, so we got a microscopic test of the stool done, and it turned out it had a bacterial infection too, so I started an antibiotic. Well, the antibiotic was given, and the baby had an allergic reaction. It just started not being able to breathe at all. It was grunting, kind of going, and just no air really going into the lungs when you listen, and just the flaring of its nostrils, trying to breathe, tugging here, ribs showing, breathing hard, having a hard time, and just kind of staring up into space, with that stare. No one had been able to find an IV on the baby. 12 times, still couldn't find the vein. They'd already tried every arm's leg has been poked a bunch of times, so we went to try the veins in the groin, the big femoral veins, and tried both sides, back and forth, just couldn't. I'd find it, but then the IV just wouldn't pass, or I wouldn't find it, I just stuck the baby probably 10, 15 times, and the whole time the baby's, you think, is this baby going to even live long enough for me to get an IV in? Finally got the IV in, and we finally started giving medicines, and just tried everything. Even medicines that I've never really used, because we don't really use them in the States, but they used to use for allergic type reactions in the lungs, asthma type reactions in the lungs, and nothing was working. And the last thing, the only thing I could think of was the drug that we used for surgery, actually, the anesthetic drug ketamine. So we gave it to him, didn't see anything, and so I said, well, I've done all we can. We don't have, the modern medicines to treat it, but we've done what we can. We've given adrenaline, we've given aminophylline, we've given cimetidine, chlorpheniramine, we've given ketamine, we've given, I don't even remember all that we've given. Oh, the baby started seasoning somewhere along the way too, so we gave some Valium. At one point, the baby actually, his heart started to slow down, his breathing started to slow down. Pushed on the baby's chest a few times. Just kind of woke up a little bit and started breathing again. I thought, there's no way this baby's going to survive. And finally I said, well, we've done what we can, and so I left. The questions are so hard. When you have limited resources and you're alone, if I tire myself out, then I'm not going to be able to save the people I can save. And it just a question because I'm used to just going all the way. But in this kind of a setting, at what point do you draw the line? And I was just struggling with that. So the morning when I woke up early and was just thinking about it. And I came to worship with the staff. And then afterwards we had the report of the nurse who's in charge of all the patients and everything during the night. I was just dreading it because I knew he was going to say, like I've heard so many times before, baby died during the night, baby died during the night. And he said, finally at about 7 o'clock, the respirations came normally, started breathing normally again, and baby's doing fine. And it was just like, it was so incredible to me because when you invest that much in something and you have these struggles, you wonder, sometimes you want to just give up and say, is it even worth going through the trouble? When so often, we've seen so many people die, so many kids, babies die. And you see something like that and it just renews your energy and your hope and you're willing to go the full extra mile again. When I went and saw that baby today and just lying there, just breathing so easily and nice, and it was, I don't even know how to describe it really, but it's those kind of things that keep me going here. When you invest so much of yourself into something and you actually feel like that investment paid off, you saved a life, a baby's life, anyone's life, that makes it all worth it.
Well, when I decided to come to Chad, I wanted to come to a place that there was tons of need, where it was remote, and where I could get an experience that will shape my future. I think I've come to the right place here in Chad. I think I'm working with the right people, with James and Sarah. And I think the combination of those two will ultimately shape my future path. To what extent, I'm not sure yet. But when I'm done my residency, those are the decisions I'll have to make then. But I know that this trip will change me, and I'm very happy that I came.
I've kind of, over the last several years, developed a philosophy that when you leave this world, the only thing you take with you are your relationships and your stories. So I want to have plenty of both. I want to have looked back on my life here on this earth and feel like I've done something worthwhile of being told around campfire in heaven, or something that people will want to hear. Something that sets me apart. We all have a way of trying to find and be our own person. Maybe this is my way. But I would hope that the people here in Bere, that they would remember me as someone who truly gave of himself for the country to work alongside with the Chadians. There's this common goal of relieving suffering and improving the quality of care here in our little section of Chad, a little section of the world. That's how I want to be remembered.
To laugh is to risk appearing as a fool. To cry is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to someone else is to risk commitment. To show emotions is to risk being rejected. To mention one's dreams to a crowd is to risk being ridiculed. To love is to risk not being loved back. To go in front under extremely bad conditions is to risk making mistakes. But risks must be taken, since the biggest danger in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, and is nothing. He might avoid suffering and sorrow, but he can't learn, feel, grow, or love. Chained by his safety and certainty, he is a slave. Only the person who takes risks is truly free.